Hello and welcome. I'm super grateful because I'm recording this training to really talk about the importance of monetizing our community. I think that oftentimes in the past, as I was growing, it was really important for me to continue to navigate in a place where I was really focused on cultivating meaningful connections, meaningful growth, meaningful intention, meaningful community. And wealth was something that naturally came to me. And I remember going through my experience and meeting people in spiritual community, and a lot of traumatic experience was projected onto me in terms of money or marketing or development. And I felt like I was doing something wrong. And I realized that I wasn't actually doing something wrong, but what I needed to really realize was that the value that I bring is always the essence of why I'm bringing it. And there was nothing in terms of money that was wrong. It was just my mindset around it. And I gave a perspective of choosing to say, hey, how can I add more value? But I needed to really find and define myself. So I'm going to go through some things of why monetizing community really allows us to build sustainable wealth, so that really it gives us a capacity to really nurture and understand the confidence in which that we can continue to navigate and move forward. And I'm going to share this with you guys live here. So I'm going to share the screen. But this is for me a reason of doing this because I wanted to really get everybody focused on, let me see here. Just going to share the screen. Second one. Here it comes. Mhm. So I put this training together to just really emphasize a different component of our mindsets because I think it's really important to um, allow these types of changes to come through us so that we can really add even more value to the communities that we're serving. Um, and kind of the first thing that I'll go through, because I don't know why this is really being unresponsive. So I'm going to go through the resilience roadmap. And some of these things that I think, throughout the course of my journey have been really indicative of my growth is a lot of the communities that I've had the pleasure of meeting. There was always like this negative perspective around money. And what I found is that I was attracting this into my own life because I was really thinking from a scarce perspective, and I chose to really focus on meaningful connection, meaningful growth. And I wanted to keep asking myself, what can I do better? And so I really recognize that scarcity is something that is projected by society's expectations, society's perspectives. And this allows us to navigate uh, from mind versus like really truly coming from a place of congruence within ourselves. And oftentimes, this is where we feel unseen, unheard, unappreciated. Maybe we don't fully revive in our energy. We don't step up in our ability to express. But this is something that I think is a very big challenge for a lot of people that want to really truly come through and break the barrier. And once they have a vision, they start to, there's this great book called The Good Book, where without a vision, people perish. And once people have a vision, they kind of feel uncertain about themselves. They step into this component of recognizing that there might be uh, more. They don't know how yet, but they know there is. And again, from my experience, this was where I had a vision, I had a deeper purpose, and I was willing to go fulfill it. But oftentimes, this is where the kind of the call to adventure was. And for me, this was really meaningful because it gave me the capacity to say, hey, although I may not feel like a success by the public's eye, I have to go out and look for help. And so oftentimes we get into that kind of leadership where we need to choose to lead ourselves. And that gives us the approach of saying, hey, I'm going to take action. I'm going to choose to take action, even though I feel like an imposter and I have fear, I'm going to do it anyway, because fear doesn't mean that we don't, or take action. Fear means we take action anyway, but we create the courage to choose to go through it. And so once that comes through, we start to really own our voice. We start to really step into our power. And that momentum starts to allow us to feel even more confident in ourselves, to lead ourselves. And that starts to allow us to integrate into different communities. And that's where the real abundance comes through. That's where I found that as a result, it allows me, for me, was really about integrating, about owning the voice. And it's interesting because for me in the past, I went back into scarcity because I allowed energy around me. So it's really important to have that congruence in oneself, to be loving, to be courageous, to be fully owning of your presence. Because in the past, I, you know, surrounded myself with those that maybe not are fully in their essence and maybe projecting their own trauma, their own uncertainties. And this for me gave me a lot of strength and resolve because it gave me the ability to have to walk through those shifts of consciousness in my own essence to see what am I not doing correctly, and then as a result, emphasizing a more meaningful approach. And so I'm really, really integrating this in a proper way as I navigate. So with that, I just want to emphasize here. Oh, we got Kathy coming on. Amazing. So I am going to. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm just recording a training, so it's amazing. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, great. It's I was just going over the resilience roadmap of my journey and really talking over about the story and why putting together, community development has been a challenging approach in some capacities, but also a fun endeavor because different people see things from a different perspective.
Hmm.
And this to me is really fascinating because it allows me to understand that, how much I've grown in the experience. So I want to show, how are you? How's things going with you? How's been the week?
The week has been okay. I've kind of been in a little bit of a funk since a conference that I was at, um, but things have been picking up in the last 36 hours. And this morning, I have to tell you, like the very first thing in the morning, I was greeted with an email from one of my senior leaders, who is a gentleman, which you would never believe, such a heartfelt, well, sorry, that's not appropriate. It was a very heartfelt message. I was going to say that a man couldn't write this, but we all know that men can have heartfelt messages. So I want to honor it, but can I just read it to you real quickly? Because like
Please.
it just blew
Yes.
my mind. So he addressed this to me, my active partner, and my operations manager, who is a woman, and he's known her for like 10 years. Says, Dear team, I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude for the support, guidance, and opportunities I've received while being a part of this incredible team. Over my time here, I've grown both professionally and personally, learning invaluable lessons that have helped me develop my skills and confidence. The leadership, mentorship, and encouragement from each of you have played a significant role in my progress. I'm especially grateful for the company's recognition through bonuses and growth opportunities, which have not only motivated me, but also reinforced my commitment to contributing my best efforts. Your appreciation and investment in employees truly make this a great place to work. Thank you once again for everything you do to foster a positive and rewarding work environment. I look forward to continuing to learn and grow with the company.
Wow.
And that came from somebody who was a corporate president of a big company before coming to work for us. So it's not like he didn't already have some incredible skills walking in the door.
And that shares a lot about you and the culture that you've created as a leader.
I still pinch myself. You know, in 1990, when I closed my family business of 67 years, I swore, Tony says, don't talk in absolutes. I said, I will never run a business again. I never want the responsibility of wondering where the next sale was going to come from or being reliant on employees. And now I'm in an employee dependent industry running a business that, you know, it was not even a year into well, actually, it was just past a 1 year into starting the business that COVID hit and dropped us to 10% of the business. And rather than, I did have a moment because my partners pissed me off when I literally said, fuck you, I quit. And then I pulled up my big girl pants the next day and said, you know what? I have people relying on me and I need to do this, and just found a way to make it work. So,
I just really want to echo the responsibility because I think it really ties really beautifully in what I want to like share and talk about. Because magnetizing and monetizing our community or organization or anything that it is, there's a responsibility there. And I find that great leaders really choose to say, hey, I'm going to figure this out, not just for my own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole. And it doesn't mean that we have to know all of the answers right off the hop, but what I believe is that we choose to create an environment where, hey, whatever needs to happen will happen, but it needs to also have a healthy dynamic. And I believe that that's a big distinction in the experience that I've had traveling the world, recognizing that business is actually such a great experience of navigating oneself. And it brings a lot of positive influence to the people that we're also surrounding or want to attract. And so I'd love to get your take on what I'm about to share because of your experience and also um, why maybe if you have any disagreements or thoughtful disagreements, it'd be great to hear your perspective because I'm recording this so that if anybody wants to watch it back later, they can actually, have some insight. Does that feel good?
yeah, that's fine. I want to just point out one thing that you talk about perspective, and I think that's the greatest thing about our community is that it's global. And so we have different people from different walks of life, and we may talk about something in our industry or something that's outside, and they have fresh eyes to be able to give us perspective that somebody in our industry, we've been doing it the same way. This is the worst problem that we have in my industry. We've been doing it 50 years. It works. Why do we change it? And people are starting to recognize that you can't do it the same way. You have to be constantly innovating. And if you don't have those new voices to be able to, and new eyes to be able to see different perspective, then you lose that ability, or you're limited in your ability to innovate because you're stuck in the mindset of the way things have been done.
Mm. I love it. And that global paradigm allows us to actually emphasize each other's strengths, emphasize on each other. It's like I love this perspective when Henry Ford he would say, "Hey, I don't need to have that answer. I'm just gonna call and get that answer." And I think this is some of the shift in mindset because most people think that they need to know the how right on the spot because they feel so uncertain or like they need to know everything. And I think that's a big challenge in the mindset that allows people to kind of hide versus step up and say, "Hey, let's figure this out."
I think that's a great point. I mean, you need to be humble. It makes you more real to the people you're talking with to begin with.
Mhm.
And to have the resources to be able to go to find solutions is more important than you having all the solutions because you can't have all the answers. And if you rely on only the information that's in your head, then you're missing opportunities to see other potential solutions.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. That's our line at work all day long.
I love it. I love it. So I'd love to get your take because, for me, this is building wealth and confidence, transforming our community, our organization to a source of sustainable wealth while developing authentic leadership confidence. Really creating these and developing these proven frameworks that allow us to overcome barriers and lasting impact. I think that the power and wealth building of community, it breaks down into five fundamental steps. And this is also
Can we just
coming from, go
can we
ahead.
just step back to the first slide for a quick second? And this is really minute, but move building wealth and confidence onto the same line
Oh,
because it's going to create a much.
I'm grateful for. So I believe that this allowing of our community and the wealth building that we allow ourselves to grow comes down to five dimensions. And these five dimensions, intellectual, allowing the intellect to see things as they are and not worse than they are. Really be willing to see them better and make it happen. And I think that comes from a whole level of recognizing, hey, we can actually look at, okay, there's an emphasis of human potential here that we can elaborate with or collaborate with or communicate with. And we don't need to, like we just said, have all the answers, but we need to be willing to take it there. And that then takes us to human, where we understand how to build our own health, our vitality, so that we can actually empower this type of collaboration for creative and a solution oriented community culture so that people are taking care of themselves, people are looking after themselves, people are recognizing this vital energy within themselves first, so that that art of vital energy is allowing themselves to first, that's the power of self-love. Third is the spiritual, where we recognize, utilize, and create patterns of focus that will guide the process of meaning and emotion. So this is a beautiful component where we allow to learn from our experiences. We allow each other's strengths to come through. We allow each other's weaknesses to be amplified because we know that as a result, we're in a safe container, and that safety is cultivated through our own vital energy. And this is where that emphasis of social capital comes through, where social connection, discovering the power of relationships and how we can improve communication during thoughtful disagreements, cultivating the power of proximity. This gives that social recourse where, although I may be living in Canada, somebody may be living in Dubai, having different perspectives and having different agreements or disagreements is also something that is super healthy. And it's about how do we actually behave in that healthiness, allowing one's voice to be heard, not feeling like anybody needs to walk on eggshells. I think there's so much power in that. And then finally, those four, in my eyes, really help the financial. They help the ability to emphasize the ability to add more value than anyone in the market and create an economy based on our own values with grace, with integrity, and with true curiosity. And this is
Just going
something
back,
that, sorry?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
And this is something that bringing these five dimensions together, this comes from a great book. Also, like the headlines come from a great book called Complete Family Wealth. And in his book, he's really a powerful creator that has allowed the people in his life and the communities and the organizations that he's built, family offices, to really define that these five dimensions are something that allow us to grow inherently internally by influencing ourselves, but also externally by influencing the people around us. And this is something that as we go through our levels of consciousness, the more flexible we are, the more we allow other people to grow because we're growing ourselves deeply and there's no competition anymore. It's a collaborative effort.
I would just speak on the spiritual piece that beliefs and shifts in beliefs are part of that as well, because sometimes we have beliefs that aren't serving us and we need to re-examine them and determine and shift as necessary. So it's not just the patterns of focus, but it's the beliefs that we carry that need to be
So
also perhaps realigned.
inside of patterns of focus, so there's language, there's focus, and then there's physiology. And so that creates meaning because meaning creates emotion, and emotion creates energy and motion. So really recognizing, utilizing, creating patterns is a component of state, and state is meaning. So that brings the emphasis of our physiology. It brings the emphasis of our language, of how we speak to each other, and it also brings the patterns of focus. And inside of each of those, so language is like metaphors or stories or experiences. Focus is kind of like we emphasize where we're going to put our energy, right? How are we going to allow these beliefs, these metaphors, these choices that we're taking? And then physiology is allowing ourselves to fully feel the exchange in our bodies. Because sometimes when we're approached with something on the external world, we feel that bullshit meter. And that bullshit meter is something that we have to pay attention to because it's something that has told us something before. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the reason that we're like I'm talking about this because I feel that a lot of communities around the world are wanting, especially in this time, to grow up in terms of emphasizing that hey, there is so much tools, so much technology, but really what we're lacking is leadership. And so monetization for different communities, is like, hey, how can we create tiered access for exclusive benefits? For example, a community of 500 paying $10 monthly generates, 60K annually, or digital products, courses, guides, templates, well-crafted courses that can yield reoccurring revenue for the leaders within that organization or community. And I'm interchanging organization community as the same thing because it really is the same. Events and partnerships, hosting workshops, securing sponsors, virtual events, eliminating venue costs, partnering while expanding reach as a team. And that's the joint venture component that, I believe is such an important case, at least for me over the past with the podcast, developing these types of experience has allowed me to say, hey, and it's so funny, Kathy, because over the past years, as I've grown, when I was fully embedded into like the platinum community, I was really empowered and I acknowledged a lot of my feelings, imposter, without judgment, and I kept going forward. I kept taking action. I kept focusing. And it's interesting how, that saying of, if you're gonna be the average of the five people you spend around your time with. And what I realized is I was learning more about myself. I was transforming these limiting beliefs into really empowering truths. And I chose to see things from a different perspective because I was like, who am I and why am I here? What am I here to do? I was marketing a lot of my energy and I was really doing really great things. And what I allowed myself to emphasize and learn was, hey, actually, Eric, you're becoming a lot more valuable in your energy. It's not about the money, it's not about it's about how you're choosing to show up. And this took me a lot of unraveling or peeling back the layer within myself to really start celebrating myself, celebrating my own achievements. Even though I felt like an imposter in many cases, keeping forward to take action was something where it allowed me to really build a network of trusted advisors, people that are different. They're allowing me to really shine because they have done it ahead of me. And that gave me the courage to consistently take action and move forward even when uncomfortable. Can you resonate with any of these things?
Yes, absolutely. Um, I, you have heard some of my transformation over the last 5 years, and certainly making these shifts has been a big part of it.
Mhm. And why do you feel that when we achieve something, why do you feel like when we achieve something, we go back to saying, we're not maybe good enough? Or, because I know for myself, I created these achievements and I was in a place where uh, doing really well. And then I remember looking to the external world for validation and feeling unfulfilled because I didn't feel maybe seen, maybe heard, maybe appreciated. And so it took me away from actually all that I was doing and really made me focus on like, hey, maybe I'm not doing enough or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And then second guessing myself.
Yeah, I'll be quite honest, that's certainly been my world. I work in a man's world. I have since 1979. And so constantly feeling like I needed to validate was a major exercise for me. Fortunately, in the last 5 years, that's shifted, and I recognize that I only need to satisfy myself, not anybody else. It's not our job to make other people happy. First of all, we can't make everyone happy. And so there's no point to trying. We need to be true to ourselves and do what we feel is right for our mission and our goals and not worry about other people.
Tabby, I'm curious because you're a really successful woman. You've done really great things. You continue to build your team, your community. In terms of your inner circle and how many people you spend time with on a regular basis, what would you say? Is it quantity or quality? How much? How little? Is there a group, or is there like a small group, or is there a handful, or maybe I don't know. I'm curious.
Um, I'm thrilled to be calling people like Todd Hartley and Jay Abraham a part of my inner circle, um, as well as the Platt community in general. I think that that has made a major shift for me when I start to get negative and down on myself. I can turn to somebody without even them knowing that my mind is going to those places and be able to kind of get a boost of energy once again and get back into the right place. because just being in that environment, it's kind of like the music that you listen to at UPW. If you hear it outside of a UPW event, it brings you right back to that point. And so when I'm in that community, I don't have to express the challenges I'm dealing with. Just having a conversation about the weather or the next trip or the next event will set my mind off. It's no different than going to business mastery for the sixth time in 4 years. I've heard it all before, but you hear it differently, or sometimes your mind just gets into that mindset where it's engaging at a different level and thinking the next steps.
I love you, Kathy. I'm so happy you're here with us. I'm so grateful. And I think this is just the mindset shift. It's like it's such a different paradigm of caliber. And I don't feel sometimes people recognize that, hey, it is about our perspectives. It is about recognizing that we don't need to do it alone. And it also doesn't mean that it has to be with hundreds or thousands of people. It means that sometimes there's a few of us that are able to lead and to drive it. And then as a result, the rest will come. And I think that this is the biggest distinction that I've learned dealing with different leaders from different communities is saying, hey, it's usually two, three, maybe five people that are really driving the ship. And then as a result, everything happens because different strengths happen together, different things happen together. The other day, one of our Platt brothers, Mike Sherrard, he had a training, and he's been working with social agents in real estate, and he's built up his community to about 6,300 agents. He's a dear friend of mine. And we ended up talking about how years ago he was building high converting content for us on the podcast, on the Resilient Minds podcast, where my first guest was Rob Gronkowski, the NFL, the
Yes.
very, yeah, the Rob. So and we were just like, wow, that was 5 years ago almost. And now he has 6,300 people in his community. He's crushing it, doing huge things around the world and, working closely with Ed Milet and doing these great things. And it's interesting how it's so important to be around the right people that really see that growth. But it doesn't mean that he spends time with 6,300 people. It means that he has 4 or 5 people really focused, honing in, taking action, doing the work, and then as a result, that's what attracted those 6,300 people.
I think a key that people need to recognize is that leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you're out front of the pack and that, it's not about significance, it's about impact and change. I had a conversation yesterday with somebody. I'm a member of the National Association of Women in Construction, and as an association, we do camps, and they're building at a fast pace around the country in North America for girls. It's a 1 week camp in the summer where girls get introduced to tools and different trades in construction. And I've been challenged a couple of times by people because it is all girls. It's not co-ed. And one particular person who I'll be seeing next month at a convention has been one of the leading forces. And I said, well, why don't you get involved with doing something that's either co-ed or for the boys if you have this issue? And so the person challenged me, he said, why aren't you leading it? And I said, you know what? At my age, at my point in life, I have other things that I'm focusing on, and I'm happy to push the agenda and make it happen, but I don't need to be the one that's out front organizing it and doing everything. I can still make it happen, but I don't have to be the one that's getting all the credit for making it happen. Like, I can make sure that the people who want to do it don't give up on that why, but you don't have to, as a leader, be the one that is driving the whole mission.
And in fact, from my perspective as well, it's difficult to do it just by yourself. or else it's the why is not big enough because then it's not connected to the hearts of so many others. At least this is my experience. If we make it about just one person, then it's never about a bigger perspective.
You're right. And I guess the point that I was trying to make was, I mean, you do have to have a team, no question about it, in order to take on something as big as that. The key is though that I don't feel like I need to be the one leading that. I don't need the significance of being the one that's pointed to as having created it and done it. I just know that that needs to happen so I can push all the right buttons to get other people to do it and not necessarily have to take that on as another thing for myself as a mission on top of all the other missions I'm involved in.
It's delegation is one of the greatest things that we get to do as leaders, isn't it?
Correct. Absolutely.
That's where we find this like ability to recognize, hey, so many people feel scared. They feel
Mhm.
70% of adults are feeling this type of imposter that they can't lead. And I believe that it's about great leaders like yourself that are willing to say, hey, you can do this. It's about actually helping them see that they can create this opportunity. They can constantly learn. They can actually have valuable perspectives. It's not about others knowing more. It's about taking the action. And I think that's our greatest duty is delegating, helping people understand that, hold on a second, you have this wisdom. Let's just actually see and stop worrying how you can fail and instead recognize that, hey, there's evidence of you succeeding in the past. There's a network of people, 3 to 5 people around you that can really help, or creating that environment, that network, that team, that growth to say, hey, if you don't have the people, I know the people. Let's bring the people in and really create that support network to then include and complement their expertise. Because this is the biggest thing that I've learned in so many communities is that they think, again, going back to thinking that they need to know all the answers instead of just celebrating their magic and saying, hey, Eric, I don't know this. Can you tell me who I need to speak with, who I need to talk to, yeah, of course, let's figure this out. What are the problems? What are the challenges? And so as a result, getting them the resources to fulfill what they need to do. And instead of what I've learned is most people are so scared to come back to me and say, hey, I don't know this. I don't have a clue. I don't, they think they have to have all the answers. Like, no, this is where the authenticity lies. This is where the true leadership lies within yourself to say, hey, man, how can I figure this out? I may not have all the answers, but can you help me find the answer? Or can we work on this together? And that's where this like support is so important, I find, because then it allows people to really step into their authenticity. They're like, wow, I'm being more creative. I can figure it out. They allow themselves to kind of let go and taking those actions. You know, if we set clear, measurable objectives fundamentally at the base, then what we can do is when those strategic challenges show up, we see opportunities of growth. And that's where that consistent self-understanding of balance, work-life integration, it's like people say work-life balance, work-life integration. It's really the same thing in my eyes. But this is where this integration is like, hey, I'm living my life, I'm building relationships, and as a result, I can integrate that into the business or into my challenges in life in business come together with such ease because I've nurtured myself in a place of total congruency and authenticity where I can lead with real transparency, with bigger purpose, with unshakable confidence. And from that place, it's like, hey, okay, so can we build wealth, confidence, and impact at the highest level of integrity, have the most outstanding sense of focus, because really allows us to understand, okay, I'm here to build a sustainable economic platform that is going to benefit in times of uncertainty from the external world. We're choosing to create certainty internally on the community side, and we're like, hey, we're not gonna worry about what governments are saying or our presidents are saying or the political system. We're gonna choose to say, hey, no, we have the capacity to actually create confident wealth creators and move into a healthy monetized perspective where these revenue streams serve both ourselves, our communities, our financial goals, and then as a result, really stepping into overcoming those imposters where we can really utilize the resilience roadmap to overcome that imposter syndrome permanently, and then have the confidence to really bring people that are focused on action, not just by talking about things, because I think that's the biggest thing is not just talking about it, not just execution. It's like uh, I I prefer not to talk anymore. you know, I prefer to just like sit and just get shit done because I see how many people are spreading themselves so thin because they want to get everything done because all they do is go into meetings and talk 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 and talk. And then the execution or they're generating knowledge or going to like get more information. But then what does that information mean if it's not being implemented in lives, in business, in community? To me, it's a lack of integrity. I'm curious your thoughts.
Um, I don't know that I would call it a lack of integrity. I think that sometimes it's just overwhelmed because they have so much information. They lack direction on where to start. And I think that the community that you're talking about provides some support to create that direction so that you can focus and set your plans so that you can implement, because trying to implement too many things at once, the brain just says, screw it, I'm not doing anything because it's too much. So I think that I don't necessarily think it's intentional lack of integrity, I guess is the better way to word it. Um, it's just missing the focus and the plan to implement it. Because
So
I know for myself, that certainly was part of the case when I started working with Tony. I mean, Firehose doesn't begin to talk about the kind of information overload that you get into when you start doing any kind of major training like that, whether it's Tony or Ed Milet or uh, Ryan Blair or any of those speakers that have such immersed programs that you're overwhelmed. And that's why repeating them makes it so critical.
and this is where I think the spiritual component comes in. So this is where it's the biggest part of for me recognizing that inner stillness because once we understand and come from a place of peace, it's not overwhelm anymore. It becomes a very narrated understanding that allows us to really get clear on our outcome. And this is one of the biggest things that Tony teaches is knowing our outcome first. Because if we know our outcome first, then it's never overwhelmed. It's actually about choosing to process the information in a way that is so structured and so strategic to allowing our goals to come through with grace and ease. And my perspective is allowing, it's not just, by the way, this isn't just about like Platinum or Ed Milet or Ryan or anybody. This is actually a congruent pattern in all communities that I've recognized in all communities that I've spent time in is that there's a lack of execution because like you said, people are so stuck in the mind, focused on the overwhelm versus choosing to be present to the heart's integrity and then recognizing, okay, what do I really want? What do I really want? Because there's a lot of projection, right, from all different leaders. And of course, when Firehose is coming from a great leader, it doesn't mean that we need to do it all right now. It's like 48 years of experience from Tony, for example. So it's like most people get stuck in this competitive paradigm with him or want to be like Tony instead of saying, hey, how can I just be like me? You know? Like,
I think though that people see the value of many different points all at once and sometimes have a difficult time prioritizing what is most important because you can't do it all at once. There was a great line last summer. I did Jay Abraham's Breakthrough at the Beaches, and he had Dr. Alan Bernard come and talk as part of the presentation. And one of the things that really stuck in my head that he said is that to try to multitask is to accept mediocrity. Because when you try to do so many things at once, you can't do any of them to the best of your ability. That to be able to stay focused, even if it's just in the moment, even if it's just using RPM and scheduling your blocks and staying focused in that moment on that task, you're going to get a whole lot more accomplished.
and one of the things that I love about Jay is his focus on preeminence and really bringing out the power of our voice, of choosing to market ourselves, of choosing to say, hey, you have a duty or a moral responsibility to really bring out your power, your essence, your grace, your product, your service. And
Mhm.
this is something that I love about recognizing, you know, when I was in Amsterdam, I was like twice my size, super big, and Jay and they gave me the microphone. It's like he looks at everybody. Did you guys like look at him? It was so funny, but anyways, the point that I asked him, I said, Jay, like, why is it important for us to really express what we are able to serve. And if we don't know how we're serving, why is that something that limits us or hold us back? And he very clearly said, he said, it's because you're not willing or you don't believe enough in your own energy or your own wisdom or your own service or product.
Very true. And the thing is, if you can't believe in it 1,000%, how can you expect the person you're trying to sell it to believe in it? You need to believe in the value that you're providing. And it is, I think that even in my situation, when we talk with clients, we talk about serving them. We don't talk about selling them. We're here to be partner in your business, to support you, and that mentality needs to be there in order to really be effective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what are some ways or challenges, I'm curious, Kathy, that you feel are prevalent in your experiences when you are dealing with putting yourself out there or when you are having that conversation for inviting the sale or inviting the service? Is there anything that you can think of?
There's certainly challenges that people put before me, but I have to be honest, at this point, I've got answers for all of those challenges. So I kind of have that mindset that I know what I do for people, I know the value of what I provide to them, and I'm not obnoxious about it. I pretty much let them know that I'm here when you need me because you will need me. Um, I don't try to hardcore sell them because ultimately, when you force yourself, in my opinion, when you force yourself on someone, then they're looking for the error, they're looking for the problem for you to fail. So I have people that I just had somebody sign up yesterday for our service that I talked to last year. And I didn't call him back to say, hey, are you still thinking about me? He called me saying, hey, remember we met last year and now I'm ready to go.
Abundance,
It's being
benevolence.
available. In my business, in the approach that I take to the work that I do, it's being available so that I'm approachable. People don't feel like they can't reach out to me. I provide service above and beyond what I do for our customers that they pay for because I help support and drive the development of technology in the industry. So a lot of people want to be associated with me because they know they're going to find out about the next development in technology before they go to the next conference because they can simply have a conversation with me about any kind of technology.
What comes to me is like is bringing your magic, your mastery, your wisdom to the forefront even more because you know, Todd, he says marketing is not humble. It's like authoritative. It's powerful. It's like da da da.
In
And
your face.
I think there's a combination of that, right? It needs to be uh it's inviting. Let's call it that. That's what I feel marketing is about. It's inviting. It's attractive. It's beautiful. And that is what I love about when we are just being ourselves, genuinely.
Mhm.
It's not really marketing anymore. It's innovating and marketing. Yes, it's saying, hey, it's an invitation still. And it doesn't mean that it is willing to have a thoughtful disagreement with the marketplace. It is willing to kind of walk into the shadow and be a light, if that makes sense.
It totally does. You know, we certainly have competitors in our market that are considerably cheaper. And I know, you know, people will refer to them often enough. And I pretty much just step back because I know sooner or later that competitor is going to let them down and then they'll be reaching out to me. And in the convention I was at 3 weeks ago, there were three companies that worked with my competitor that are all switching. So, you know, there's no reason to talk poorly about your competitors. Sooner or later, people will learn it for themselves. And rather than you telling them and you belittling your reputation by talking poorly about someone else, you just let them learn for themselves. I'm never going to be so short on demand for clients that I would spend the time to badmouth my competition. Not even someone who does that to me.
I
I
would
will
even go.
always stand.
Sorry, go ahead. My apologies. Please.
That no, that was the only point is that I'll always stand above um, to be the more honorable person and not belittle someone else.
I even feel another stage there where it can be like, hey, how can discovering and creating partnerships with competitors and see how shared responsibility or shared organizational behavior to evolve alongside each other, like what is that even possible, is that something that can change, because like this is something that I've learned also from Frederick Laroux and Casey Sheehan. You know, Frederick, he wrote a book called Reinventing Organizations, and he talks a lot about teal organizational philosophy, so like really holistic perspectives. And I know Casey Sheehan, the CEO, or he's no longer the CEO, but he at the time of that writing of that book, Casey was the CEO of Patagonia, and I know Casey, he's a great man, really deep man, and this type of exchange in terms of resourcefulness, of looking after how organizations can actually be more holistic in each other's narratives or share even more responsibility because they're kind of operating from the same principles. And by operating from the same principles, now they're able to create bigger impact. And it still creates a benevolent exchange of money or resources. Uh, and they're also then doing bigger things on the external world. So internally they're growing and externally they're growing.
You know, that's one of the things that an environment that I grew up in was having healthy competition, having healthy relationships with your competition. And I continue to do that today. There are other estimating services that are not as big as mine. And so when they get overextended, they'll send clients to us. And we communicate on a regular basis to have the conversations on best practices and things that we can do to support one another in the industry. I mean, I had a situation a couple of years ago where someone was making things rather difficult for me. Some people who know me well know more of those details, but ultimately, I offered to go where his estimators are in another country and train his estimators. And uh, I made it perfectly clear to all of the association presidents in my industry, and they all shook their head. They're like, why would you do that? That's your competition. I said, you need more resources than I can provide. Don't you want another resource? And don't you want that he's doing valuable work than the less than valuable work he's doing today? I would rather have good competition and compete against good competition than to compete against somebody who does a lousy job.
Yeah, it's like but Tony, because it raises our standards, right? It raises our standards. Having people that are willing to play at that game, it raises our standards, willingness to challenge each other to be better and to continue to grow. And I think that's healthy. It's really healthy. It's allows good, healthy focus because at the end of the day, it's the principles that guide us that will be the ones that define us. Kathy, you're a legend. I love having you and connecting with you deeper. Can I'm curious for anybody that is watching either the video back, how can they maybe find out more about you and your estimating work and what you're up to so that they could really connect deeper?
Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn and Facebook, but they can also reach out to me at kcase@quantifyna.com, and I'm happy to meet or talk with them there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. It's always great to talk with you, Eric.
Likewise. Okay, well, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you tomorrow at Todd's.
Yes. I'll see you then. Do your
Ciao.
homework.
Yes.